Welcome to Wrestling Roundtable Radio. We are on the air at blogtalkradio.com/Wrestling Roundtable, as well as Go Fight Live. Thanks for listening, and if you want to call in, the number is 347-857-4647. Join us and share your thoughts and questions. You can't do that if you're listening to this on YouTube. If you're listening to us on YouTube, it's way past the live time. So please get with the program and join us Tuesday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I believe it's like 4 in the morning if you're in the UK. But either way, thank you for listening. I'm the host, Eric Santamaria. Been working in wrestling a little over 6 years, doing lots of different tasks. Cameraman, videographer, and now commentator, ring announcer, etc., etc. I've got the documentary, Wrestling Road Diaries, coming out. Be on the lookout for the Wrestling Road Diaries documentary, documenting what ended up being the final countdown tour for current U.S. champion in WWE, Daniel Bryanson, Bryan Danielson, American Dragon, as we knew him before, along with Colt Cabana, Sal Rinauro, and lots of others making cameos. So check out WrestlingRoundtable.com for more updates on that. So thank you for joining us once again. Get some hot, cold sodas and cold, hot popcorn and enjoy the show. So let me introduce the panel for tonight. Introduce someone who accompanied myself and several others to the Izod Center in East Rutherford for what we're going to talk about first, Strikeforce. That would be Will Brooks. Hello, Will.
I am here, and I'm the only Will that matters because Will Lafitas won't be here. So
Will Lafitas is in California, and he will be sorely missed, I'm sure. And I know that if he were here, he'd want you to visit tldwrestling.com. Corey in Chicago, our radio panelist. Hello, Corey.
Hello, Eric. Hello, Will.
That's the panel, and we're going to get down to business in a moment, but I wanted to let you know first that you should sign up for our newsletter, because not only is there going to be a lot more exclusive content soon, including what's going to be a feature that's going to unravel over several weeks, my top 10 favorite wrestling matches of all time. Everyone always asks, what are your favorite matches? Well, you're going to find out if you sign up for the newsletter. And as another added incentive, some person will be randomly chosen within the next 50 subscriptions to win a free Wrestling Roundtable t-shirt. So make sure you're in the game. You have to sign up for the Wrestling Roundtable newsletter at WrestlingRoundtable.com. While you're there, please check out all of our other content, especially all of our recaps. Bill Treadway has gone crazy, as I've mentioned. I say that every show, but it's still true. Bill has recapped the first several WrestleManias, and even though that smart Mark anti-Hogan bullshit really takes away from his reviews of Hogan matches, the rest is pretty funny, so check those out. Zach Fellows recaps SmackDown every week, and we've got lots of others. And not just recaps, also columns. Jay Leto from Wrestling Roundtable recently wrote an article about Sting. Also, Corey, you just wrote an article about Gorgeous George. Tell us a little about that.
Well, I was doing a little bit of research on a wrestler that my mom really loved as a child, and I wanted to share that with the world. Gorgeous George, a lot of people don't know this. He's the reason why most wrestlers have these elaborate entrance themes now. He was the world's first wrestler to have his own music, his own lights, his own entrance. And I think it's really important that people get to know who this man was and what he meant to professional wrestling.
Certainly inducted into WWE Hall of Fame last year, largely, I'm sure, because they bought out the rights to his biographical movie, but all the same, certainly one of the most important historical figures in wrestling. So check out that article written by Corey on WrestlingRoundtable.com. There's lots more, including new polls, news, of course, always content for you on WrestlingRoundtable.com, including the shirt. If you don't win the shirt, if you sign up for the newsletter, you can always purchase a shirt at our shop, along with Pro Wrestling Respect DVDs hosted by Brett Midge Simonello and myself. Now that all that is out of the way, let's get down to business. This being mixed martial arts up first, as I mentioned, Will Brooks and myself attending what ended up being the historic Strikeforce Fedor versus Silva card. It was set to have the first round of the Heavyweight World Grand Prix, but unless you have HDNet, if you were in the arena, you got to see a prelim fight I wanted to at least mention before we get to the main card, Will, and that was welterweight Igor Gracie defeating John Salgado, by technical submission in an arm triangle in the second round. I want to bring that up because Igor Gracie was filmed for Rodney LeCon's documentary, The Grappling Kings, which will hopefully be coming out this year. What'd you think of Igor Gracie? Did he live up to the Gracie name, Will?
Yeah, I mean, whenever time Gracie wins by submission, you kind of got to give it to him that it's definitely in his blood.
Salgado, I think if you're going to go out, that might be the way. He didn't tap out. He got choked out. So it was a technical submission, and at least he went out fighting like a warrior. But the fights continued because this entire card was full of heavyweights. Now, we'd recently, in the past year or so, criticized Strikeforce for their heavyweight division, but this was a real turnaround. First up, the heavyweight champion, Alistair Overeem's brother Valentin, made his Strikeforce debut and started off the evening hot because the theme of the night seemed to be the ring card girls weren't getting a lot of work because most of these fights ended in the first round, and the first fight ended in the first round. He defeated Ray Sefo in a first-round submission with a neck crank or can opener in his Strikeforce debut.
I have Dutch ancestry in me, so I had to automatically root for Overeem no matter what. But overall, he did a very good job. That's a different submission I've never seen before. I've heard of it, never seen it before, so it's nice to see it. And he definitely impressed me.
All of these heavyweight fights that weren't in the tournament also were reserve bouts. So that's something important to keep in mind because a lot of these heavyweights definitely impressed in their non-tournament fights. Moving on, Chad Griggs defeated Gianpiero Villante. First round TKO. Now, Chad Griggs, in his last fight, was the one who gassed out Bobby Lashley. And even though I thought Lashley was winning that first round until the fight was stopped, Chad Griggs had a lot to prove here, and I think he did. He took a good beating, got a bloody ear, but still managed to get the TKO victory. Your thoughts on Chad Griggs? Is he a prospect, Will Brooks?
I think he's definitely a prospect. He definitely shows he shows how he has talent. So give this guy credit.
Shane Del Rosario, who Mauro Ranallo called on the broadcast one of the least talked about undefeated heavyweight strikers in the business. Something along those lines. Shane Del Rosario, 11-0. Continued his undefeated streak against LeVar Johnson with a first-round submission and an armbar. Should we be talking more about Shane Del Rosario, Will?
Not just yet. I think he needs to face somebody with a name. Like if he fought Chad Griggs next, that'd be, and the winner of that one, he's definitely something who should be pushed a little harder for Strikeforce. I think that's a nice bout they should have.
Well, those were the reserve fights, and the first fight of the tournament itself, former Pride star Sergei Haritonov. You could see all the Russian flags in the crowd, and they weren't necessarily all for Fedor, who was really the big star of the show. And I joked before the show started that this event was the closest that we're going to come to Pride in the U.S. right now. And I liked the Pride tournament style where they brought out all the contestants in the tournament at the beginning of the show and lined them up on the stage. I liked even Strikeforce's staging. You didn't particularly care for it, Will. I was saying that that's the sort of staging and, I guess, pageantry or showdom that I would like to see more in UFC, but you didn't like that.
Well, I mean, I liked when they all came out in the beginning of the show. That was kind of cool. But, I mean, I just didn't care for the pyrotechnics and the fire, especially when, like, they don't even play into them. It's kind of like, well, then what's the point of having them? They just kind of distract at that point. They don't like, entertain us. They more distract us.
Well, I think it's fun. I also like the different way that they have the card girls work whenever they do. They didn't get to do much on this show, but I liked how they had all 5 or 6 of them all at different positions on the staging and around the cage. But let's get to the real fight, though. Sergei Haritonov defeated Andrei Arlovsky in the first round with a vicious knockout victory. It's been a while since I've seen someone knocked out cold like that. What do you think of Sergei Haritonov keeping himself in the game, Will Brooks? Is it time for Arlovsky to finally hang it up? And incidentally, he said after the fight he still won't.
Yeah, I think it's time Arlovsky did. I mean, he's had some pretty bad knockouts, and it just doesn't seem like he's as good as a fighter he was way back when, 6 years ago in the UFC when he was champion. But as far as Sergey, he definitely looked like he could maybe go to the championship because he's probably going to face either Brett Rogers or Josh Barnett next round. And I think he's better than both those guys. I want to see him and Brett Rogers go at it because that's going to be a fucking war. That's what I want to see. In that case, it's kind of a push at that point. I think they both have good stand-up. But Sergey, he could be the guy that faces Overeem or Fabricio, whoever wins that fight. So I don't think Antonio Silva is going to beat the next round either.
Well, I mean, when the fight with Fedor was announced, I thought, whoa, that's a real big challenge. Now, of course, and we'll move on to that main event fight right now, Fedor has gone up against bigger guys before and overcome them before all the time, it seems. And the difference, though, this is not Hungman Choi he's fighting or someone like that. This was a guy who's very skilled, good striker, and obviously great jiu-jitsu. Had a great fight last time, and he came back in the second round and with a TKO victory. But this time, Antonio Silva, wow, he beat the shit out of Fedor. There's really no other way to put it. In that first round, it looked a lot more competitive, where it was mostly stand-up, and he landed some good shots on Fedor, but Fedor was alive. Second round, though, what a great strategy. Took Fedor down immediately, used his weight on top of him, and just pounded his fucking right eye practically out. And even though Fedor looked like he might have gotten that knee bar submission in or some sort of ankle lock at the last few seconds of that round, not quite. Silva didn't even sell it, if that's the right term. But I think it's hard to dispute once you saw Fedor's eye, the ref stoppage there in between the second and third rounds. So before we get to the aftermath of the fight, what did you think of Fedor's second loss? Well, I mean, third technical loss, but second real loss in a row, no less, to Bigfoot.
I know what you mean. It was a little surprising. Again, like, you don't think giant Bigfoot stuff. I thought he'd give him a fight, but I didn't think he'd pound on him like he did the second round. Like you said, it was brilliant, taking him down right away and just holding him there, man. It goes right back to what I was saying. It looks like Fedor just doesn't really care anymore. You know what I mean? He looked like the last couple of fights, it looked like he just doesn't give a shit. I was even making that joke when he came out in the beginning of the show with all the 8 other guys. It just seems like he
you were making that joke because that seems to be always his demeanor when he comes to the cage, doesn't it, though?
Even more so lately, though. And I to tell you the truth, I'm starting to think that the M1 global Russian mafia is really like telling him, you're fighting more because we can make more money off you. I think he wants to get out, just can't do it.
Well, okay, let's bring that up then, because some people were saying he didn't look in good shape. Not that he was ever fucking Arlovsky cut or anything, but between his demeanor, between his look, and the fact that he was real quick to blurt out that he might retire in the post-fight interview, which he's rescinded since then. He said he's going to continue to fight. A lot of people are questioning his training, which I think is an interesting parallel to when Brock Lesnar won at UFC 100, when he unified the title against Frank Mir in Vegas in July 2009. A lot of people were saying they want to see Brock and Fedor. But now it seems as if, since they've both lost, that a lot of the same criticism is going against both guys. And that would be that these camps are way too narrow. They need to expand their training. M1, we know he's got a stake in the company, and there's a lot of that Russian mob stuff, as you mentioned. But do you think that Fedor just needs to either maybe drop weight, as a lot of people are saying he should go to light heavyweight? Do you think that he needs to just refocus his training in addition to that? What do you think the next step for Fedor is? Because in addition to all this we just mentioned, doesn't it make you also second-guess his loss to Verdum? I mean, this is a guy who went undefeated for like 10 years, 29 fights in a row or whatever, and he lost so quickly to such a basic move.
If he's serious and he still wants to fight, then yes, he needs to get out of his comfort zone and definitely train with people who are going to fight him and then actually challenge him. Like the same thing with Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar needs to get out of Minnesota and train with a gym that actually is a reputable gym, not the gym in his backyard, which it is.
Essentially, these heavyweights need to get out of the snow.
Yeah, they need to get out of the snow, and they need to push themselves. I mean, if they really want to be the best at what they do again, like Brock Lesnar can be the best again, and so can Fedor. They want to get on top of the profession. They got to be serious and travel to reputable gyms and get their ass kicked on a daily basis to get better. Brock Lesnar needs to learn how to get punched in the face and deal with it, and Fedor needs to rekindle that fire that made him what he was, which was essentially was the best fighter in the world for a long time. That's what these guys need to do. If they don't do it, then they're going to continually. I think it was Einstein said, insanity is repeating the same acts over and over again, expecting different results. These guys are insane.
Somehow I doubt that Brock Lesnar or to a lesser extent Fedor are going to necessarily end up like Ken Shamrock, where he just keeps, or Jens Pulver, where they keep taking these fights and just keep fighting and fighting and fighting well past the point when they probably should. That being said, what'd you think of all this Dana White bullshit afterwards, where he was tweeting about how Fedor's done nothing for the sport and he's a joke and blah, blah, blah? Now, I think it's one thing to question the fact that he hasn't fought necessarily the top heavyweights in the world for the past couple of years. I mean, yes, I don't necessarily think they're tomato cans either, but I could see that point. That doesn't mean that he should be disrespected, though. Do you think that this is just hypocritical bullshit by Dana White?
It's really more retaliation for everybody who keeps asking Dana White on a daily basis, what about Fedor? What about Fedor? What about Fedor? And eventually he's going to blow up like he did, saying, fuck Fedor. I don't care. He's not done anything. He's not done this. He's not done that. Of course, and plus, also, let's not forget, it's just like pro wrestling. You never load up the guy who's like in the other company. You never would catch Vince McMahon saying how great TNA is, or how great this one wrestler in TNA is. He's never going to say that because he's afraid it might make people watch that show. So they're not going to say anything that applies to mixed martial arts.
I just think that a lot of Fedor hate started pouring out after he lost, and you hear a lot of these guys posting on message boards and a lot of other bullshit of, oh, you Fedor nut huggers are butthurt and all this other dismissive bullshit when, first of all, this guy was the top heavyweight in the world during a time when Pride was the top promotion in the world and UFC was pretty much down and out. So he pretty much was the face of MMA worldwide for a period of time. So you can even go against that whole he had a career built up on tomato cans. Like, really? Like, all the guys that he beat in Pride, like when he finally fought Crow Cop, when Crow Cop was in his prime, and Nogueira, et cetera, these don't sound like tomato cans to me. And even if Brett Rogers wasn't the top heavyweight in the world and top 10 ranked, whatever, he still was about 10-0. So it's not like he was fighting necessarily a scrub per se, but I don't know. You can make arguments about the numbers there. But point being that this is a guy who goes, Fedor hasn't done anything for MMA or hasn't done anything, whatever, but he gave Brock Lesnar a title shot with one win in UFC and not even against a guy who was even top 10 heavyweight, I would think. So he'd also, I think, change his tune in a moment if there was a chance of Fedor coming back and he was undefeated, because we all know that he was all about trying to get Fedor with anything short of co-promoting with M1, of course. He made one of the most ridiculously big offers for a UFC contract ever to get Fedor the other year, and of course M1 messed that up. But I'm just saying that I think that there's a fine line between not promoting the competition and disrespecting someone who deserves respect. So I'll let you have the last word on that.
First off, someone just said on the chat room that Fedor is the Sting of mixed martial arts, which I really like. The thing is, like with Fedor, when he didn't come to UFC, honestly, the guy, he's the only fighter probably ever, and probably will be the only fighter ever, who didn't need the UFC. So that's why he didn't have to sign with UFC like everybody else does. You know how everybody else is like, oh, I gotta get to UFC, I have to kiss Dana White's ass to get there. Fedor didn't have to do that. He was already as big as he was. He didn't need it. So that's why that's why I took why he didn't sign. I mean, there's also probably other things I didn't see behind the curtain or whatever. As far as what you were saying, yes, I agree. Fedor was the biggest name in mixed martial arts for a long time, and rightfully so. He was the best. But if you really ever I can kind of see where Dana White's coming from. But besides being the name, he didn't popularize it like the guys in the UFC have done. Now, granted, that's also because they have better backing, and more money, and obviously Dana White's way better at this than Pride was, because Pride went out of business. As much as I love Fedor, and I do, what did he really add to the sport besides just, he was great, yes, but he didn't popularize the sport, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I mean, I'm a huge Dana White fan. I'm a big admirer of most of what he does, but when he does shit like this, I'm going to call him out on it.
It does piss me off, too. But I got one more thing for you, man.
Sure.
We've seen two fights together. We saw the Brock Lesnar fight where he lost to Cain Velasquez, and then we saw the Fedor fight where he lost to Giant Silva. So I got to tell you, if we go to UFC together and we watch Bones Jones lose, I'm never watching another fight with you ever again. I'm not going to do it because it seems like every time we watch a fight together, we get excited for one guy, he loses, and so if Bones loses, I'm not watching you with a fight with you ever again.
If I believed in that mumbo jumbo bullshit, I'd say don't jinx it. But I'm still rooting for Bones Jones.
Me too. But again, man, if he loses, I swear I'm never watching another fight with you ever again.
Before we move on to pro wrestling, let's take a call. Ryan from Massachusetts, hello.
Hey, what's up, guys? I just have one line that I saw on the forum, so I'll just say I'm here. Having Fedor Emelianenko lose 2 straight fights in a row is like finding out Santa Claus isn't real and then getting kicked in the balls.
That's perfect.
All right, well, let's move on then. Want to remind you that there are polls going on right now at WrestlingRoundtable.com. Lots of different choices for you at WrestlingRoundtable.com. So go to the poll and vote. But up next is the news. Hacksaw Jim Duggan was announced last night on WWE Monday Night Raw as the newest addition to the 2011 class of WWE's Hall of Fame. Hopefully, he's not driving down to Atlanta with the Iron Sheik, or else Sergeant Slaughter may have to accept the award on his behalf. In a rather humorous move, WWE has brought back Bill DeMott to be trainer on the new Tough Enough, which has already started filming. Bob Holly was originally considered to be a trainer first until he found out none of the contestants had brain cancer and turned down the offer. If you haven't followed any of these jokes so far, use our updated search function on the website, WrestlingRoundtable.com, to Google them. I'm not slowing down for you. The National Wrestling Alliance has come to terms with Percy Pringle to appear on their NWA Championship Wrestling from Hollywood program. Better late than never, I guess, as the NWA needed someone who knows how to arrange funerals 20 years ago, when they died. Heavyweight MMA fighter Bobby Lashley has signed with Titan Fighting Championship and will fight next on March 25th against James Jack. Lashley apparently felt he wasn't ready for Showtime, and decided against re-signing with Strikeforce, which is unfortunate for his career since black heavyweights would get title shots on their first loss in the promotion. That's just some of the news from WrestlingRoundtable.com. More coming later in this week, and don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. But we're going to move on to pro wrestling, like I said, and for that, we're bringing on Corey from Chicago once again. Hello, Corey.
Hi again.
You just have a masochistic streak, don't you? Because we're going to talk about TNA's Against All Odds pay-per-view, Corey.
I survived it.
Now, usually your venom is spewing all over the message board, and sometimes you say shit that just makes me go, what the fuck? But I think you're going to be getting free reign here because I got a lot to say about TNA, but I'll let you have the floor. And a lot of what I have to say relates to what WWF has done in contrast in the past couple weeks. But first off, on the TNA pay-per-view Against All Odds, the opener was X-Division champion Kazarian defeating Robbie E. How did you think this Jersey Shore experiment has gone, Corey, and Kazarian just getting Tracy Brooks back recently, his wife, to be involved, and I guess they're going to drag this out for a mixed tag feud down the line. But your thoughts on the opener and their angles?
Well, Tracy actually saved the segment. Originally, this was supposed to be Robbie E. versus the Young Bucks, but due to travel issues, Generation Me never made it. So they opened the pay-per-view with a segment where Robbie is staring at an empty stage, and they counted out Generation Me, knowing full well they were nowhere near the building. And that's when they started Kazarian's match. It was okay. It could have been a little bit faster in spots, but Tracy's return was a very welcome addition. I really like her.
I really like her cleavage.
I think she's pretty.
Beer Money tag teaming with Scott Steiner to defeat Rob, Terry, Gunner, and Murphy. Gunner, previously known as Phil Shatter in the NWA and sometimes Ring of Honor. But who'd have thought that we'd be seeing Frankensteiners in the year 2011? Corey, your thoughts on the tag?
Especially off the top rope. This was actually a strong match. I was quite happily surprised. Beer Money are working kind of well as a face tag team. I wasn't sure if they could.
Not to cut you off, but let's keep in mind that the other year they were one of the top selling acts in TNA, even as heels. So if you're over, you're kind of over for life in a way. But yeah, So I'm not particularly surprised by that, but continue.
I thought it was kind of good, actually. They work quite well as faces. So this was a stronger match, and I'm glad that Scott Steiner and Beer Money went over, actually. Rob Terry is just not doing it for me. Gunner, he's quite a good wrestler himself. I really hope that they push him stronger this year. He's got a lot.
You're only saying that because he's Adam Pearce's friend.
Actually, I saw his work in the NWA. He's really good.
I'm joking.
I know. But he's really good, and I hope that they push him strongly this year.
Samoa Joe defeated the Pope by submission in his... I love how whenever he does it, Mike Tenay has to give us every possible name for this. It's the coquina clutch. It's the rear naked choke. It's the... Either way, he submitted the Pope, and they had a big brawl afterwards, so it looks like that feud's continuing. And a lot of people I know on the message board are not happy because they're like, why is the Pope a heel? Why are these two feuding? Blah, blah, blah. I just can't believe that Samoa Joe re-signed with the company at all. Now, I was actually having a talk with someone about it the other day, a wrestler I know, and I said, I can't believe that someone like Samoa Joe, who in TNA's restructuring phase now, we know he's not getting a whole lot of money. TNA wrestlers in general, unless you're over 40 and used to wrestle in WWE, don't get great deals. Even Christopher Daniels, who you'd think would get better than a per-appearance deal, they cut him down. But I would think Samoa Joe would be like, I've been with this company a few years. They've fucked up everything. I mean, he's been verbal about that. So I would just think, why wouldn't he just go to Japan, get a couple tours, and get paid a lot of money, and then do indies? I think he'd probably do pretty decently. But then again, I'm not taking into consideration he just had a kid, and he might not want to be off to Japan for weeks at a time. Who knows how many times a year? So, I don't know all the circumstances. So just from the outside looking in, I would just think at this point a wrestler would just go, man, not even so much for security, but just out of boredom. I mean, it's clear that they're not going anywhere with him. So I think he might be able to get a better deal somewhere else. But, oh well, maybe I'm just completely wrong. So anyway, back to the match. Corey, what do you think of Joe and Pope?
I was happy to see Joe win, and then something odd happened. Afterwards, Pope had gone to shake Joe's hand, and then he slapped Joe, and I believe Kato from the Green Hornet jumped in and kicked somebody and then ran away. And I tried rewinding this because I had to make sure, did I really see Kato? Maybe I've got a headache, or maybe
as long as it wasn't Seth Rogen, that's okay.
Oh, no, this was quite a bit Kato. I don't know who they got to play Kato, but we had a comic.
Orient Express Kato?
This was Kato from the Green Hornet. I don't know
Kato Kalin?
Oh, God, no, please no. This was Green Hornet's Kato. This was from the television and radio serial Kato that jumped in. And now,
that Russo, he's so topical.
Now I'm curious where they're going to go with this. I mean, it's enough that you have Samoa Joe going up against Pope for no discernible reason, and now you feel the need to bring in a comic book character. That wasn't too bad, but certainly it screamed Vince Russo, and I'm curious as to where they're going with this.
Well, maybe you're the only one. Up next, Hernandez, who just recently came back from Mexico, and clearly they've got the good shit in Mexico, don't they? He looked really cut and big. But anyway, they started a nice racist angle with Matt Morgan. Matt Morgan being the big white hope. Hernandez pissed he never got his title shot. Stupid white boy getting it instead. So kind of a reprieve of the LAX motif. What do you think of this, Corey?
It was uncomfortable. It started off innocently enough with Matt Morgan saying, hey, when you left, you were my friend, then you came out of nowhere and beat me in the head. What did I do? And then Hernandez cuts this very racist promo, and one sentence he said really threw me for a loop. He said, from now on, this is my country, not yours, Holmes. And I thought, oh, that's a little bit uncomfortable. I've never really been comfortable with racist angles, and this was really
even if he's a heel?
Even if he's a heel, this was done in pretty poor taste, and it was done in front of the whitest crowd you could have possibly done. So this was not a really well-thought-out plan. We can do a feud between these two without throwing a promo like that in. It's just very difficult to sit through.
Rob Van Dam defeated Matt Hardy next with a 5-star frog splash.
Slow. It went slow. This is where I really want to slap the hell out of the booking team. If you knew this match was poor at Genesis, why would you bring it back for this pay-per-view? That makes no sense to me. And just like the last pay-per-view, it was slow. It was absolutely slow. And one more time, Rob Van Dam kept stopping every fifth move to stare at the back and scream, "Really?" I don't know what they're doing here.
They split up Team 3D, the Dudleys, as they used to be known, and now Bully Ray has once again defeated Brother Devon. Seems like Devon's just getting his ass completely handed to him in this feud, but I do kind of like the idea of, with all this anti-bullying stuff going on right now, of Bubba Ray being the bully, and he beat up some students afterwards from their school and all that sort of shit. So how do you think this Dudley split is going this time, Corey? Much better than the initial incarnation from 2002?
I've never really been a fan of Bubba and Devon fighting each other, and the two kids that Bubba just decimated were actually Devon's sons, which made it a little bit uncomfortable to watch. He powerbombed one of Devon's children through a table, and he slipped. It was an honest mistake, but he slipped, and the boy landed neck first. And there were a couple of tense moments where he just did not wake back up. The other boy got slammed pretty hard as well, and they did have to stop the segment to bring out the gurneys. One gurney didn't make it, so Devon had to carry one of the boys himself when they
didn't stop the segment. That was planned, I'm sure.
Oh, I want to hope that, because that was really ugly. Devon had to carry one of his kids. The other one was carried out via stretcher, and it was kind of a dark scene. And Taz, of course...
I'm sure that's what they were going for, Corey.
Well, if they were acting, then Taz was the best one.
Wrestling and acting? Don't even use those words in the same sentence.
If this was somehow scripted, I have to say Taz did a good job on commentary, because he definitely had the somebody has died voice.
Oh, the Owen voice. They worked you, Corey.
If they did a good job, because Taz really, really did well on commentary for this.
See, I got you to say something good. I got you to say TNA did a good job on something.
It's not that hard.
Jeff Jarrett with Karen Angle, Jarrett, defeating Kurt Angle, and Kurt Angle's all dejected afterwards. They're really dragging this out. A lot of Jeff Jarrett, Double J, Double M-A, and Kurt Angle stuff going on. So what do you think of this whole match and Angle in general, Corey?
They can do away with it. They can do away with it right now. It was kind of uncomfortable when Kurt took off his boots after the match and just walked away.
Were you just completely uncomfortable this whole time? Maybe you needed to go to the bathroom.
No, it was really an uncomfortable pay-per-view. It's no freaking wonder I was the only person watching this.
Let's move on to the main event. Jeff Hardy, whose drug trial just seems to get pushed further and further back every month, winning the title back from the champion Mr. Anderson in a ladder match. TNA just seems intent on rewarding Jeff Hardy's drug habits. At least we assume it's still going on, but his trial definitely is. So you have to say sentences now like, the TNA champion's drug charges are still pending. That being said, how do you think he performed, though, in this match with Mr. Anderson?
The ladder match itself was not bad, and certainly it was one of the stronger matches on the card, but I couldn't help but notice that Mr. Anderson lost via oops. It was kind of funny. They had two ladders up, and Anderson and Jeff Hardy went up the ladders, and Anderson had punched Jeff in the face and reached to go grab the title. Well, I guess he wasn't paying attention to where the ladder was, so he was a little out of reach. He ended up smacking the belt, which then proceeded to fly all the way around the ring a few times, which was very amusing to watch. So when the belt is starting to slow down and is about to be in wrestler's reach again, Anderson reaches up, and Jeff Hardy goes to push him, and Anderson slips and goes, oops, and falls off the ladder. The landing shakes the ladder that Jeff Hardy is on, and Jeff Hardy reaches back, his arm goes up, and oops, the title snaps off in his hand. And then Jeff Hardy looks into the camera with this confused expression like, wait, I won? I won? And then everybody just stopped for a moment and looked around like, was he supposed to win? Oh, who cares? We're calling the bell. I guess he won via oops.
Was it uncomfortable?
No, it was actually rather amusing.
I've had just about enough of TNA. I'm going to try to relate it to what WWE has done later on. But speaking of WWE, we're going to move on to WWE. And first thing we're going to talk about is finally the big comeback. Because finally, Brett Midge Simonello has come back to the Wrestling Roundtable radio show. Hello, Brett.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hi.
Didn't expect that, did you? So, glad you joined us, Midge, because the first thing we're going to talk about is one of the big returns in the past 2 months. Actually, less than 2 months, and there's been tons of returns to WWE, but this is probably the biggest. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's return to Raw for the first time in about 6 years. He said 7, but I think he's just rounding up. Whatever. Last time I remember him being on Raw was with Eugene, so that was probably about 04 or 05, whatever. Gives a shit. So, Rock's big comeback, and wow, everyone was buzzing about this. One promo, and people were saying so much. I'm going to let you guys say so much. First, Midge, what'd you think of Rock's big comeback?
I enjoyed it completely. I mean, it's the type of thing that had casual wrestling fans that used to watch saying, hey, did you see that? Or you played it on YouTube. Everybody, is interested again, at least in this one little section for one brief time. Maybe they'll get back into it WrestleMania. The Rock has got people talking.
I'm a big proponent for less talking, more wrestling on Raw, but had The Rock talk for a whole hour, there was no way I was changing that channel. And I needed to shower badly. I was working out that day, but I was not leaving my screen no matter what because he was on it.
I can't get the image of you all sweaty and breathing heavy watching The Rock out of my head.
Talk about uncomfortable.
Corey.
I almost passed out. I was just so excited. I don't know where that man came from. Just, ooh, The Rock, and then I passed out.
Well, he is pretty gorgeous.
This was the best done return that they have done in several years. There was absolutely no way anybody could have guessed he was even in the same state as that episode of Raw. This was extremely well done.
You mean the state where they make movies?
Yeah. Most
Who would have
people
thought that the actor was in Hollywood?
Most people believed that he was not coming back ever. The best part was the tease. We had a segment right before they go to a commercial break where you see a limo pull up and a woman's leg falls out. So we're thinking, oh, maybe it's Linda, maybe it's Stephanie. We come back, it's The Rock.
Little do we know, The Rock just looks really good in heels.
He does have a way about him, especially with those sparkle rings that he wore in that Disney movie.
Let's bring up Abe from Augusta, Georgia. Hello, Abe.
Hello, Eric and the panel.
Hi.
What's on your mind?
I did see the Rock promo. I find it funny how they wait till you're asleep to have something good happen. I find it real funny. But
well, a lot of people were saying, oh, they only did a 3.1 for that Raw. Like, you'd expect it to do much better when they didn't advertise The Rock was going to be on. If The Rock was advertised beforehand, I'm sure they would have done a lot better. Not fucking 5s like Corey thinks, but I'm sure they would have done a little higher.
it was a good promo. I like that he came back. One thing that I'm surprised no one mentioned is the lighting thing, because they did light it for about a good, 2 minutes? So you would thought it been somebody else. It was like, okay, who is it? And then The Rock came back. That was a surprise. And I did find it funny how he mentioned Fruity Pebbles, and then John Cena used Fruity Pebbles in the Elimination Chamber, but that's a whole other story.
I like that you mentioned the entrance and the lighting, because maybe it's because I've been watching a long time, but first thought I had was, geez, another Rock theme? They could fill out a whole CD full of different versions of the Rock's theme. And the funny thing that I like about that is it's all versions of the Nation's theme. Remember, that's the foundation that they built on. Just something I like to keep with me. Nicholas in Indiana, hello.
Hello. Yeah, I thought it was funny that they were promoting how Justin Bieber was going to be on, or other celebrities than The Rock. But I thought it was more funny was Rock was tweeting pictures of him doing a promo, like a video online promo for the WWE.com, right before he just came out to do the promo live in front of everybody. And it was on, the photo of him was on the internet right before he came out. WWE did a good job promoting who's going to be it, but The Rock spoiled it for everybody else.
The Rock didn't spoil it. That's their own programming, although I don't know how many people actually saw that on the website beforehand. But back to the promo itself, I'm not as blown away as everyone else is. I love The Rock, don't get me wrong, and it's cool to see him back, but I hate to be the downer on here because I'm not saying it was bad. I enjoyed it, yes, but when everyone was talking about it, like, oh, I want to go to WrestleMania now. Oh, I can't wait. And taking it to exaggerated, ridiculous levels of Rock versus Cena at WrestleMania, get real, people. He even just fucking said he's guest hosting it, so not quite going to get that, I don't think. But it just seems to me a symptom of a larger problem, and maybe I'll just make the point later on with the other returns, but I'm thinking, wow, it's less than 2 months into 2011. We've had Rock come back, Trish come back, Christian come back, Nash come back, Booker T come back. I don't think it's a coincidence that all these people are coming back, and not including the tough enough people like Austin and Trish, and I mentioned Trish, but Austin and Bill DeMott or whatever. But it just seems to me not a coincidence that they're doing this in a year that they don't have Batista and Jericho and Michaels and a lot of these older guard guys, because I've been saying for years on the show around WrestleMania time that they can't keep pushing this youth movement bullshit off. Now, Vince McMahon has said at the last investors conference that this is going to be the year that they're finally going to do it because pay-per-view buy rates are down. They're doing good business otherwise, attendance and in other areas, including WWE Studios, believe it or not. But pay-per-views are down, and they're saying it's because of the talent. We haven't built up new talent yet. Well, get to it, fucking assholes. Let's go. We've got Cena, Orton, Edge, a lot of established guys, fine, but we need to be putting some of these guys in the mid-card who are ready into the mix. And they started the year off good with Alberto Del Rio and The Miz, and that's great. But Vince McMahon's point was that this WrestleMania is going to be the year that we showcase more guys in the main event or title matches who haven't been in there before, and we're really going to start changing the guard over. But it shouldn't have to get to this point where they have to almost. You can see them almost trying to rely on these names in a sense, but there's so many other young guys they could be putting up into those spots with them that I'd like to see some more of. John Morrison, and bring Everyone Loves Punk, put him in there more, Danielson, whatever. So I'm not completely shitting on it, don't get me wrong, I don't want to be the negative Nancy in here, but I'm just saying, years ago, I said the problem is they're doing, even if Michael's Undertaker is great, and it was, it's still not someone new. And I enjoyed The Rock's promo, but I'd like to see overall some more fresher names in there. So maybe I'm just alone in that, but let's go back to you guys and see specifically what you thought was so great about The Rock's promo. Brett?
Well, this might be just my wishful thinking, but it seems to have set off a chain reaction where maybe we're getting a little more PG-13, we're getting a little more risque. Halfway through The Rock's promo, they just stopped bleeping him, they stopped censoring him.
Isn't it amazing how Austin built a career on saying ass, but now they bleeped it?
Well, it's taboo again, so, we could everybody forgot, so we could redo it.
Mm-hmm.
But then this week on Raw, John Cena cut one of the best promos he's ever done, and he told The Rock to blow him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's just this 2 weeks and we're done and we're going back to PG, but it seems like it's trending maybe back towards the 13, 16-year-old guys.
You would kind of get that impression from these two promos, and I guess the whole Bella Twins want to get Danielson's virginity sort of thing. But I think it's probably temporary, or at least isolated to those specific angles. I don't think you're going to see this zeitgeist shift back towards a PG-13 motif for the rest of the company, especially with the Mattel deal, and Linda McMahon's still hopeful for a Senate run in the future. So even with those things in mind, I don't see them shifting their whole theme again per se. But harkening back to the Attitude Era is what a lot of people said they did like about The Rock's promo, and I think that's because, first of all, you're just looking at an incredible talent, someone who really has an aura and a command of the audience and the microphone and speaking and just a presence. A lot of people liked that segment on Raw because they said the crowd was hotter for that than they've seen in forever. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe it wouldn't happen so much for other people. Maybe The Rock is just special that way. But a lot of people also liken that to the fact that it goes back to just before they switched over to these Hollywood writers. When you had guys like Rock and Austin and DX and whoever in the Attitude Era, and they pretty much had free reign to do what they had to do as far as promos go. I've made the point on the show many times before that whenever you get a guy who's allowed to do his own stuff, like a Mick Foley, a Michaels, guys who are established and aren't from that WWE developmental system of recite the lines that these comic book writers give you. You see guys like Roddy Piper and Michael Hayes come out and cut these promos, and everyone's in awe of how does this happen? Well, that's the way they used to do it. And I think this was another example of hearkening back to that time before it was this rigid, stupid system that really holds a lot of people back. But what do you think, Will Brooks? Was any of these the reason that people liked Rock's promo?
The thing I liked the most was how all the Cena fans in the audience completely just forgot all about John Cena or all about The Rock, because they realized The Rock was, if you had to choose, you got to go with The Rock, and how Cena kind of is a poor version of The Rock. He really is. But I have to agree with you. Like, I think people also remember the time when guys had free reign and they could talk and say whatever, and The Rock was so creative that he did all his old lines, and it was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm 15 all over again. It's just fucking awesome. I haven't been like this type for wrestling in the longest time.
The way he carried himself was a lot stronger than most of the other people on the roster. He speaks quickly. He speaks very, very strongly. I don't think it was so much how many times he could say candy asses as much it was how he carried himself that makes the crowd pay attention. That's something that we're not seeing in these wrestlers that came in after the Attitude Era.
They're larger-than-life stars.
Well, yeah, think about it. The last 8 years or so, we've had a lot of wrestlers come in that sound like constipated robots. And then you have somebody come in like The Rock, who likes to lay the smacketh down on people's candy asses at random. And suddenly people are seeing the difference between a promo that works and one that just sounds freaking awful. I think in the next few months we may even see a downsized roster because of this. Because once the crowd realizes somebody like The Rock can cut a promo and the rest of these guys can't, they're not really going to want to see those other guys anymore unless they can step up. The Rock's promo is great for those of us who wanted to be entertained, and for the other wrestlers, it's going to make them step up. It has to make them step up or step aside.
Well, I'll give you this, Corey. You're the first person I've heard say that The Rock's promo is going to lead to people getting fired.
Well, yeah, because none of the other people can talk.
Well, that never stopped Jeff Hardy. And let's remind you that Sheamus will fuck your girlfriend. Ryan from Massachusetts, you want him to chime in?
Yeah, I do. Here's my number one problem with The Rock's promo, and yes, I do have a problem with it. He had the crowd in the palm of his hand, and part of me felt like he kind of abused it, because Cena touched on it on Raw last night. Yes, The Rock's back, and he said, oh, I love you fans, and I'm back, and all the fans love it, but he has done absolutely nothing to show any of that yet. He could literally walk out, say, fuck you all, fuck WWE, fuck you fans, leave, and then a decade later come back, hey, I'm back, you all still love me, and the sad fact is the fans will still love him.
Why is wanting to do something else with his life a fuck you fans?
No. I'm not saying that's what he did. I'm saying if he did do this then he came back, if he did this and came back, then the fans would still love him.
In the Kurt Angle, I hate black people sense.
I suppose, but it just feels like Rock took for granted the fact that, hey, I just came back, and you all still love me exactly like I did when I walked out. Well, I'm not saying walked out because I'm not faulting him for wanting to do other things with his career, but I'm just saying he left WWE. Okay, doesn't mean that he still should take for granted the fact that the fans will love him regardless of what he does, and that's kind of the feeling I got from it.
Well, I can't say I agree with that. I don't know if he necessarily takes it for granted, because let's not forget that this guy is really good at what he does, and I bet you if he got a 2003-esque reaction where people were booing him, which wouldn't have happened, but if that did, he would just switch into heel mode like a light switch, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Brett, did you see Elimination Chamber?
I did.
Excellent, because that's what we're going to move on to next. Opening bout was Alberto Del Rio facing Intercontinental Champion Kofi Kingston in a non-title match. Incidentally, speaking of Intercontinental Champion, I don't know about you, Brett, but we've been watching a long time, and because it's been drilled in my head since when I was young, can never get used to the idea of, let's say, Miz, the WWE Champion, wrestling U.S. Champion on Raw and Intercontinental Champion on SmackDown for like a week or two, and it not being a big deal.
It's not a big deal anymore. It certainly used to be back in our day, but right now it's just kind of a belt to have a belt.
I know. Old habits die hard. I just can't drill it through my own head that like they gave away Intercontinental Champion versus WWE Champion on TV. They gave away World Champion versus U.S. Champion, blah, blah, blah. Just can't get used to that.
They
but
had
anyway.
World Champion versus World Champion 2 weeks in a row. You missed that one?
Right. So Alberto Del Rio defeating Kofi Kingston. Did this put Alberto over on his road to WrestleMania, Brett?
Not as much as his match the next night on Raw, which I guess that match kind of set up, making him out to be, the vicious heel, top heel that they should. He's out there trying to hurt and injure people. And I guess last night, the match on Sunday night was just pretty much a setup, him continuing to take out Kofi Kingston on Raw. The match wasn't great. Kofi does his high spots or whatever, and Alberto Del Rio finishes it, but nothing crazy.
You said high spots. You're so inside.
I just made jumps really high.
I was surprised that this was on the card. This felt more like a SmackDown match. That's not a diss to either Alberto or Kofi Kingston, but I think this definitely should have been on SmackDown. And you're right. There's just nothing going on right now for the Intercontinental title. And that really does piss me off about WWE. This is one of my more favored belts, but over the last couple of years, they've just done nothing with it.
Couple of years. I think you'd have to go back about maybe 7.
It's about 7. This should have been on SmackDown. There was really no spot on the card for this. They could have put the title on the line, made it important, because, I don't know, it's a pay-per-view, and we used to defend belts on pay-per-views once upon a time in a far, far away dimension. But we just completely forgot about the Intercontinental title. I don't think the commentary mentioned it more than twice.
But if Kofi Kingston wasn't on the pay-per-view, wouldn't you be saying, they didn't even put the Intercontinental Champion on the pay-per-view?
Well, pretty much. I mean, this guy is one of the better wrestlers that they've got right now. He's the Intercontinental Champion. He's going up against a guy who's definitely going to WrestleMania. Why would they just toss this aside as an opener? I can't wrap my head around that.
All right, well, 11-time World Heavyweight Champion Edge defended his belt in the SmackDown Elimination Chamber, last eliminating his former tag partner in the Tag Team Championship duo from 2002, Rey Mysterio Jr. Afterwards, Alberto Del Rio attacked him, and Christian made his return. Everyone's happy. E&C beat up Del Rio. So what'd you think of the half-hour-long SmackDown Chamber Midge and Christian's return?
Christian's return kind of overshadowed that whole match. I feel like those 5 or 6 guys have just been overdone to death. It's the same guys eliminated in the same order, I feel like, every time they're in any type of match. Hopefully, I mean, this is me being optimistic again, the whole Christian thing leads into a feud with Edge for quite possibly a title and something going for Christian since he's been back?
I have to agree. The match was really lackluster. It was very slow and methodical. And Christian's return definitely overshadowed the entire match. That became more of a focal point than the fact that the belt was on the line in a cage. Christian cage, haha. And I'm glad Christian's back, although I am a little concerned he's still injured, so I don't want to see them put him on the shelf again too quickly like they constantly do with Ray. But it was nice to see him come out and make the save for Edge. I really hope that they acknowledge this on the next SmackDown.
Up next, Trish Stratus returned. The only person missing now is Tomko to make the trilogy complete. But Trish came back as a trainer for the next Tough Enough.
I love Trish's comeback. Her and Booker, I guess, seemed a little awkward in the ring together, but it was fun awkward, so I really didn't mind too much. It was cool seeing her come out and help out Kelly.
Well, two different segments, but she did come back and save the rehired, quote-unquote, Kelly from Lay Cool later in the night.
First, she messed up the Stratus faction because she had 16 shields on, but whatever. She completely recovered herself by hitting the double, what's the fuck was that move called? The bulldog off the rope.
It's starting to worry me about commentary in the future for Respect, Midge. What was that move called?
That's all that it is.
The bulldog. She's the cute one. She was the cutest one of the night. I really adore her. She's got such a sweet aura about her. And even though her segment with Booker T was a little bit awkward to listen to, I thought it was really great that they brought her back because just like with The Rock, nobody really saw that coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what she does for Tough Enough. I missed her. I like her.
That's because she is the greatest female wrestler to ever, grace the ring.
Oh, please. Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel from The Core defeating Santino Marella and Vladimir Kozlov to regain the tag belts. What'd you think of Santino and Kozlov, the comedy duo, finally losing the belts, Midge?
I'm not sure what you meant by comedy duo, but whenever Santino loses a match, I lose a little piece of my soul.
So their whole gimmick is dancing, and you don't know what I mean by comedy gimmick?
I'm really not quite grasping what you mean by that, no. But
sticking up for the other short Italian, I see.
Yes, I am. It's called loyalty. Vladimir will probably disappear back to SmackDown, and Santino will go back to doing one-liners. Who knows what's going to happen to those belts again.
I was not very big on this match. I just don't think it was as good as it could have been. And it really didn't seem as though anybody involved cared that they were on the pay-per-view in a tag team title match. But to me, that is cute.
Yes, she is.
She's very cute. I'm kind of hoping that from here we'll kind of split Kozlov off. I know that's a far-fetched idea, but I really like Kozlov, and I think that he has a lot to offer, specifically to the heavyweight title division. I'm really hoping that this will be a better year for him.
He is slated to start back his big man cycle in WWE. As we know, big men in WWE are brought in as monsters at first, and once that has wore itself out, then they become comedy figures until the cycle starts again. So it looks like that might be starting up again. Who knows? WWE Champion The Miz defends against Jerry the King Lawler, and I was somewhat suspecting that Jerry Lawler's mother's death might make the chances of his title win a little more likely. I would have expected maybe a one-day title reign, but they decided instead to not interrupt The Miz's title reign and keep him with the belt until WrestleMania. How do you think that whole angle played out, Midge?
I think Jerry Lawler has done a great job in getting The Miz over as a heel, as an actual talent in the ring, like wrestling-wise. Jerry Lawler is one of those guys that pretty much schooled The Miz while he's in the ring. He's helping out his career as much as Cena did way back when The Miz first started feuding him. Jerry Lawler's doing good, and hopefully he gets his reward at WrestleMania somehow, either with Cole or the other guy.
Jerry Lawler is one of these names that I did not bring up in terms of these older names who they constantly rely on, because I like that Lawler got a title match against Miz on pay-per-view because it hasn't been done to death. This isn't like Sergeant Slaughter coming back a million times. It isn't Undertaker coming back a million times. Jerry Lawler this was his first title match on pay-per-view, so I thought it was really cool. And at least with The Miz, he hasn't defended the belt against one person 2 pay-per-views in a row, which is something that they dreadfully overdid, let's say, against Cena and Orton in their millions of matches. I definitely prefer a champion to face someone different every month on pay-per-view, or at least no more than twice in a row, but I liked this whole idea, Corey, and how do you think it played out?
I wanted Kane to win. I was rooting for him the whole time. He was pulling out moves that he usually reserves for his indie shows. I was thinking, just like you, Eric, okay, this guy just lost his mom. He's not really interested in this match at the moment. He even cut a promo before the match where he was just cleaning himself up from crying. This guy can wrestle like nobody's business. He is the biggest face that they have ever had. Give him the belt. He's been on the roster 115 years. Let him have the damn belt. Why does
But
Miz
isn't
have
it just
the belt?
as good a story for him not to win it?
No, I wanted him to win the belt. It books itself. He's the good guy. Miz is the bad guy. Miz is pissing people off. Kane is the anti-piss-off wrestler. Give him the belt. Please give him the belt. Even if it's
But Miz is also obviously fighting Cena at WrestleMania, so doesn't that mean his comeuppance comes at the biggest show of the year?
Well, perhaps, but still, I wanted Kane to win. I thought he went
Kane?
on... No, Kane, Jerry the King Lawler. I wanted him to win. I thought he did his best in this match. He wrestled like nobody's business. He was even able to hold his own when Alex Riley was acting a mess on the outside and had to be sent to his room. Give Kane the belt. What were they thinking?
Enough. Insane.
Let's welcome Jason Aletto. Hello, Jay.
Hey, Eric, what's happening, man?
I wanted to know what you think about what we were just talking about, the Miz-Lawler match.
All right, I have to disagree with Corey just because it would have been a great moment to see Jerry the King Lawler finally win the belt, but I absolutely agree with you, Eric. It's just as good of a story with him not winning the belt. There are many Hall of Famers and tremendous wrestlers who have never won the WWE title, and Jerry the King Lawler is one of them. Now, would it have been a shocker? Yes. But you don't always need that shocker. It's predictable that The Miz is going to go on and face John Cena. We've known that for months. And
nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with that. To have Jerry the King Lawler beat him at the pay-per-view only to lose it the next night or a week later, it would kind of be an injustice in my mind. It would be like just a quick transition that really didn't mean much. I don't think it would have worked.
It'd be more for Lawler than for Miz.
Exactly, I agree there. But as far as the match goes, it was a good match, good drama. Michael Cole was awesome in his role. Definitely enjoyed the match. The match, it gave you that feeling that Jerry the King Lawler might actually win the belt, and that's the kind of feeling you need.
All right, well, the main event of the night was the Raw Elimination Chamber. That Cena won in predictable fashion to face the man we were just mentioning, The Miz. How do you think that Chamber match played out, Jason?
Again, predictability. I liked the match. There were some cool spots, but everybody knew John Cena was going to win. I did. I liked the CM Punk, Randy Orton stuff that helped to build their feud a little bit, because this is a feud that's going to go on for a couple of months before they finally meet one-on-one at WrestleMania. So that was good. John Morrison was awesome. The spot where he climbed the cage, I was always wondering when somebody was going to do that. And I thought maybe years ago that Rob Van Dam was going to pull that shit off, but John Morrison did it. It was kind of a scary spot, but he pulled it off, and it was pretty nice. All in all, the chamber matches are always fun, man. This time of the year in the WWE, the pay-per-views are always a good time. They're always, just a blast. And John Cena winning was the right thing to do, and I definitely enjoyed it. It was a fun match.
Unlike the SmackDown Chamber, all the members involved in the Raw match really seemed to leave it all in the ring. CM Punk, as usual, plays his role as the evil, do anything to win, bad guy is great. John Morrison, like Jay said, stole the show. He didn't skip a beat. He didn't slip. Even when he lost, how he landed on his knee to even sell that knee injury even more, that's why he was going to lose. That was great. Cena's jumping Punk on the grate instead of in the ring. Everything they did in that match just seemed to work. Sheamus getting eliminated by being dropped from the Empire State Building by Morrison on top of him. Everything in that match just, they did good. They did a good job.
All right, Corey, your turn to find something wrong with it.
Are you uncomfortable?
Did you notice that when they first sent Punk out of his little pod, the pod actually malfunctioned?
Or maybe that was supposed to look like that.
Open the pod bay doors, Punk.
It stopped part of the way, so only half of him comes out. He's trying to kick the ref and the door open as he's smacking Orton. Orton is giggling like a mad fiend. Punk is like, fuck you, fuck you. It took him forever to get out of that damn pod. He lost, and then we have doodle-ding, doodle-ding. The general manager says, and I quote, do-overs. And they sent Punk back to his pod as though this whole thing just didn't happen. I thought that was probably the best moment in the entire cage match.
Any good thoughts?
Cricket, cricket, cricket.
All
Did
right,
Cena have to win?
Of course he did.
Yes, he
Who
definitely
the
had
fuck
to
else
win.
would win?
Hasn't he main evented every WrestleMania for like 6 years now?
So
He
what?
do so until he's dead.
Move
Yeah,
aside.
Corey, he's going to main event WrestleMania for as long as he wants to main event WrestleMania. Until he retires, he's going to main event WrestleMania. There's really no way that he's not going to, unless somehow he just happens to fall off in popularity, and none of us ever see that happening.
Well, he
Why
doesn't
in the
have
world
to.
shouldn't he main event WrestleMania, Corey?
He doesn't
I'd love
have
to know one good reason.
because he's done it a million zillion times. Step
So
aside. Let
what?
somebody else have a turn.
They didn't stop Hogan.
Let somebody else have a turn. You can wrestle somewhere else on the card.
What WrestleMania main event would you put there to sell the most pay-per-views? Who would you have in the main event?
Anybody whose name is not John Cena.
No. What two people would you have in the main event besides John Cena?
Hypothetically speaking, ignoring the current storylines.
Yes. What two top people would you put in the main event to sell pay-per-view this coming year?
I would go for Sheamus versus Wade Barrett.
And you think that would make money?
Is this some sort of fucking UK pay-per-view or something?
You just
If
named
they
like two guys I would never want to see it.
If they hadn't dropped the ball on Wade Barrett, he might actually have a shot at the title. Now we're going to have Cena have another shot at the title he's already had.
He's the biggest face in the company. He's got to win at WrestleMania. That's what WrestleMania is all about. And you can't change that. It's classic.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's replace
I figured out the
Sheamus.
problem.
Let's replace Sheamus then with CM Punk. I mean, why not? We've already got the story with the Core and the Nexus not getting along, right? Well, let's throw a title into the middle of this and have Barrett and Punk beat the hell out of each other for it.
Will people pay? People won't pay to see that as the main event of WrestleMania.
That's a mid-card match.
Absolutely.
I figured out the problem. Corey's used to the indie main events that don't make any money, as opposed to the WrestleMania main events, which make millions of dollars, which contributes to having indie events at all.
It's not my fault if the booking team can't figure out how to use these guys.
First
you
of all,
sound like
Brett.
you're on TNA or something with the pay-per-views you want to put together.
First of all, Brett, if Corey was trying to make these indie main events, it would probably be Punk and Danielson for about an hour and a half straight. And the real problem is she has a vagina. Moving on.
Please, 40 minutes at the most. 40
I'm
minutes.
just kidding, Corey.
I know.
You're still batshit, but let's move on. Raw the next night, 2/21/11. The big reveal, which pretty much everybody knew was going to be Undertaker. Before we get to Undertaker, I wanted to talk at least a little about some of the other things going on that night. It was mentioned earlier, Cena's promo, the retort to The Rock, and you may not like that this guy always main events WrestleMania and always has the title and always wins like he should, but I think you would even have to admit, Corey, that this promo was great. People saying that, The Rock killed Cena's credibility the week before were definitely spoken too soon. I think Cena had a perfect retort. I could not believe he actually said, blow me.
He had a meal. It was a metaphor.
I think he did a real good job of saving face, so to speak. So what'd you think of Cena's retort, Corey?
The only critique I have is that it shouldn't have been
No.
in
Save that for last. Let's start with the positive for a change.
You were such a hater.
It was okay. It was better than most of what they've done with Cena over the last 2 freaking years.
When's the butt coming?
I just don't think it should have been in a rap form. The wording was great, but let's do this as a regular promo. The fact that they tried turning this into a rap, no, stop that. Stop it.
You just contradicted yourself. 10 minutes ago you said you didn't want wrestlers talking like this in promo. So he did something that flowed and it was natural, and now you don't like that either.
He's not The Rock. Yeah.
Yeah, he's John Cena. Will Brooks.
I thought the rap was great because it brought us right back to what Cena used to be. Like, oh shit, he's going old school on The Rock here. Wow, he's really digging deep and like bringing it out. Like, hey, fuck you, Rock. That's what I gotta say. And saying blow me, oh my God, I couldn't believe you said that was fucking awesome. So Corey, I'm sorry, you're just too much of a hater for me, man.
Midge?
The only problem I had with John Cena's promo was that he didn't take out a bag of airplane peanuts and yell these nuts in his mouth at the end of it.
I absolutely loved it. Reverting back to the old school John Cena is something that we've all been clamoring for a long time, and I mean the fans have been watching him since he came into WWE in 2002, 2003, you know, and giving him a little bit of an edge finally is something that I've wanted forever, because every single feud he has, he always seems like his back is up against the wall, and he's backing down, and he has respect for his opponent until eventually they finally put him over the edge. But this time he pulled no strings, man. He had a week to think of a good promo, and I'm positive he came up with most of his shit by himself. And he did a great job. It was a phenomenal comeback, and it's adding a lot of heat to the already big fire that's been going for a week with this return of The Rock.
Before we get to 2/21/11 and the comebacks that happened, I want to, because I am saving my positive thoughts for that, believe me, but I do want to bring up a problem that I think is really manifesting itself in the past couple weeks. Is it just me, or is there way too much Russo-esque hot-shotting of titles going on lately? What the fuck are they thinking? What is the point of awarding the belt to Dolph Ziggler 1 week to have him lose it 3 minutes back, upping Edge's title range to 11? What is the point of having Miz and Cena with this super fucking tired... I mean, just fucking Cena alone has done this, I win the tag belts with the person I'm feuding with, 3 times now already, between Batista, Michaels, and now Miz. What is the point of having Miz and Cena win the tag belts and then lose it back immediately to Slater and Gabriel? What are they doing, Corey?
I have no idea. I think it's time we take the crayon away from Triple H's daughter and get somebody competent to book, because that did not make any sense to anybody who was watching.
When I say WWE is desperate, I don't mean financially, certainly not. They're doing real well in that category. They're always making money. But it just seems to me, between all these comebacks, between all this hot-shotting, the fact that they're upping everything, and I've said this many times on the show, as far as pay-per-views, multiple cage matches, multiple TLCs, multiple gimmick pay-per-views. Now it's not 30 minutes, 40 minutes in the pay-per-view, blah, 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 blah. All this sort of ADD wrestling, as Rodney called it on one of our latest shows, it just seems like they're creatively bankrupt. It just seems like they're creatively desperate. This is a year that they've got at least one pay-per-view a month except for March. They're going to do about 13 this year, maybe more. They've got the Slammies. They've brought back the King of the Ring. They're bringing back the Diva Search, and in addition to Tough Enough, it's just like constantly reverting back to some older shit. So I've made that point twice already. So what do you guys think? Is WWE just creatively bankrupt in a sense, or am I just over-exaggerating with a couple hotshot title switches, and they actually seem to have an idea where they're going for WrestleMania this year? Jay Leto.
I don't think you're overreacting at all. I think they have an idea where they're going for WrestleMania, but I really think that the lack of star power right now, like losing Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, Batista, Undertaker, and Triple H are obviously winding down. I think
Edge
they kind of hit Edge. Yeah, he already said he's going to retire pretty soon. I think they're hitting the panic button a little bit, and they're bringing back Stone Cold for Tough Enough, Booker T, Kevin Nash for that one-time deal. I don't know if he's coming back full-time or not. The Rock, Trish Stratus, to name a few. And I think they're hitting the panic button. I really do, and they're trying different things. The 2 title changes, like Dolph Ziggler winning the belt, I can understand that, because that doesn't happen too often, but to do it again, on the next TV show didn't make any sense to me. It was absolutely pointless. I agree with you, man. I don't think you're overreacting to this, but I really think they're just hitting the panic button a little too soon right now.
Midge, do you think that it's just indicative of the times like we were talking before? You have champion versus champion on TV all the time. It's like they're stuck in the Monday Night War mindset where they have to give away pay-per-view quality stuff for free every week or else people won't watch. Is that affecting the buy rates? What do you think about everything we just talked about the past couple of minutes, Midge?
Like Jay said, the situation on SmackDown is different than the situation on Raw with the tag titles and the heavyweight title.
Well, keep in mind that SmackDown is still within the past few months having just moved to cable on Sci-Fi as well.
Right, but most people just switch the DVR channel and really haven't noticed. The tag titles, I guess, don't mean anything to anybody still, so switching the titles is really only that big of a deal for you right now. The heavyweight title thing, they might be going somewhere with it, bringing Dolph Ziggler back somewhere down the line.
Let's also keep in mind that as much as I am protesting, SmackDown did, I believe, their biggest rating on cable so far this past Friday. So, Will Brooks, your thoughts on everything we just talked about?
I got to agree with Jay a little bit. They are kind of like bank-off ideas, but they kind of felt like that way for the longest time, you know? It seems like a lot of WrestleManias are kind of rematches or just same old shit every year, just different guys in it. But yeah, they definitely need fresh new ideas. But I feel like it's not just that. It's also they need new wrestlers to run out these ideas. You know, maybe it's not that maybe it's be the same thing, but different guys you haven't seen in that place yet, and that would make it fresh.
Right. I mean, I'm not against bringing back all these names, but when that's what you're relying on instead of having your own names to build up in there, let's not forget that when they got really into the Attitude Era, once we got past the WrestleMania 14 torch passing, when it's, all right, we're going with Austin and Undertaker, Kane and DX and The Rock and Nation and blah, blah, blah. They didn't pay attention for like a minute to the past. They didn't give a shit about that stuff. There weren't a lot of comebacks then. You didn't see fucking King Kong Bundy coming back in the middle of that. You didn't even have any Hall of Fames back then. They were just all about what was going on now. Not saying I completely agree with that. I think there's a fine middle ground. But point being, as much as I like seeing Nash and Booker T and Rock and whoever coming back, they don't necessarily need, like, did they really need to be bringing back Booker and Nash? I don't think they need them. I think they've got a lot of, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but they do have a lot of good mid-card guys, like I'm constantly emphasizing. Now, that being said, now I hate to bring up TNA with this, because TNA really doesn't have much to do with this. Because I know when we would talk about WWE before, Will Vafides would say, see, this is why TNA will never compete, blah, blah, blah. And even though it didn't really relate to what we were saying, I do want to make a point with this, because TNA are such fucking biters. First of all, they just had Scott Steiner, Hernandez, and Tracy Brooks come back. That's big for them, I guess, in their own company. But when Rock comes back, it just made me think, wow, TNA has Hogan, Bischoff, Jeff Hardy, Ric Flair, an entire roster of great mid-card names and names that should be in the main event slot, kind of like the same problem WWE has to a degree. But when Rock came back, I was thinking, man, nothing TNA could do could even come close to fucking touching this in any way. Just The Rock coming back alone. And then you think about Booker coming back at the Rumble, Nash coming back at the Rumble. Sure, if Booker and Nash came back to TNA and it was looking that way, everyone was like, oh, they ruined the main event Mafia comeback that TNA had wanted to do by signing away those two guys, fine. But if they had come back, yeah, we like Booker, yeah, we like Nash, but it would just been, all right, cool. But when they come back at the Royal Rumble, then it's a fucking huge event. It's so much more grander. It's so much more crisper and well done. And when WWE gets on a roll like this around WrestleMania time, you know, in years past, even recent years past, that these first couple months of the year, once they get the ball rolling to WrestleMania, they really get on a roll and they do really well with it. And I think we're in the midst of that right now and continuing that from Rock's comeback the week before. Now we look this week at Undertaker's comeback. And even though I was hoping that we might finally get Sting Undertaker WrestleMania. And even though that wasn't the match that I was always harping not for and dreaming about, I was probably more like Austin Goldberg, Austin Hogan sort of stuff. But that was definitely underneath it, and I would have loved to, if Sting did finally come to WWE, for it to be on this stage in Atlanta and against Undertaker or whatever. So even though that didn't materialize, Undertaker comes out, and then Triple H comes out. And I got to tell you, I actually missed him. It was really cool seeing Triple H come out, and he got a great reaction, probably even a bigger reaction than Undertaker, because Undertaker comes back all the time. He was just there a few months ago before he got buried for the third time by his brother. And then, I mean, literally in this case. And then Triple H comes back, and he's been gone about a year or so. And I thought it was really cool. Look, even though it's not Sting Undertaker, this isn't, I don't think, a bad alternative, especially with the tie-in with Michaels that they're bound to do. There was an HBK chant, so that's got to be in there. WWE, I think, has gone a little overboard with these ridiculously contrived camera angles with the WrestleMania sign in the back, but in this case, they seem to make it work and got the matchup for WrestleMania over without a word. So I thought it was pretty good. So let's see what you think. Jay Leto.
I thought it was good, too. It was a bit awkward for a second, I thought, because, you know, they're not saying anything. There was no physical contact. It just kind of ended. But I really liked the fact that no announcers were involved, just like when The Rock came back. There was complete silence at the announcer table. When Triple H came out, I was shocked. I thought that was an awesome additive to the predictable Undertaker return. I thought it was great. Very well done. They got the job done without saying a word. You got to give them credit for just being these main event superstars for so many years that they could actually pull that off. Not everybody was able to pull an angle like that off, and they got the job done.
Two big comebacks for the price of one. Corey.
I hate to be a downer, but I'm not really looking forward to that matchup.
I'm shocked.
Well, think about it like this, okay? When they last fought at WrestleMania, it was fantastic. It was one of the most fun matches the whole year. That was WrestleMania 17. I loved that match. When I rented the pay-per-view from the video store back when we had one in this area, I rewound that match 3 times in a row. But it's 2011 now. The Undertaker's arthritic, and he's just coming back from injury. Triple H has 2 bad quads, and he's coming back from injury. I
think his quads are fine at this point.
I don't know. I don't know if they can put on the same kind of glory match that they had 10 years ago. I kind of figured they weren't going to bring back Sting, but I also didn't think they were going to pull out Triple H.
Well, Undertaker has performed really well in the past year, and what all accounts seem to indicate was he's obviously winding down in his career, injuries are piling up, but despite all that, not only does he physically, obviously, aesthetically look good, he's kept himself in good shape. I thought last year he pretty much year in and year out performed really well. And Triple H has always been solid in the past 10 years or so. I mean, I think he lost a step once he tore his quad the first time in 2001, but since then he's been pretty solid when he wants to be, and I think they know the scale of WrestleMania, and they know that they've got to follow a lot of these younger guys coming up, or maybe try and steal the spotlight from them, so to speak. So I certainly think with WWE's bells and whistles, they could cover up any shortcomings they might have, if they have them. But what do you think, Will Brooks? Was Triple H Undertaker something you're looking forward to? How do you think that came off last night?
Well, the match itself, I'm sure it's going to be a great match. But the promo, I don't know. It was kind of cool that they didn't touch each other and not talk.
I don't know if you could technically call that a promo.
Well, you know what I mean. But like the thing is, like I was again so hyped for Sting that if they had done the exact same thing minus the suck it, the Sting promo would have been fucking awesome because they didn't touch each other in, like ever. So it would have been cool. But I am looking forward to this match because it's going to be a good match. And actually, I got to admit, that was one of the biggest surprises of WrestleMania 17 because I remember going into the match not giving 2 shits. And then Motorhead played live, which was fucking awesome because I've seen them live. They're great. And they went on to have a great match. I mean, I am looking forward to this match. Just I thought the promo was a little disappointing because, again, it wasn't what I wanted to see. But
they need to bring Motorhead back for this one. They need to bring them back for this one-time only gig.
Totally.
I thought their first WrestleMania match back at 17 in 2001 was pretty good. Aside from that ridiculous choke slam into the crash pad spot, aside from that, it was really good. I don't expect this year to be any worse, per se. But some people might think that maybe Triple H should have come back to maybe wrap up some loose ends with King Sheamus. Midge, do you think that Triple H should have gone after Sheamus, or are they saving that till after WrestleMania?
No, nobody cares about Sheamus except for Corey.
Thank you.
The best things that Triple H and The Undertaker do are build-ups. And if they're going to be building up their match till WrestleMania, that's what I'm going to be looking forward to. Under one condition.
No guy liner on Undertaker anymore.
Well, no, I'm okay with that. But the Triple H that needs to fight The Undertaker is the singles wrestler, is the game, is the old school guy that we saw on Monday. I don't want to see any DX shirts. I don't want to see any glow sticks. I don't want to see a baseball hat.
I don't want to see any biker shorts on Shawn Michaels hugging his banana.
Please, no, not again.
Fire.
Exactly. I want to see Triple H, the dude, versus Undertaker, the badass. And the lead-up will be right up, just as good as any going into Mania.
Like I said, I missed seeing Triple H. I was actually happy to see him back. But I'll tell you what, speaking of the game, I will never get used to this version of Triple H, the game, doing a crotch chop. It just doesn't go together to me. Sucker. Abe in Augusta, Georgia, once again.
On the return from last night, it was whatever. I thought it was going to turn out Sting was, but I'm not interested in seeing it. It is what it is, so I guess we'll see it. But my only issue is when you talked about the returns of about over a dozen people, you thought they were going to build the youth movement, what they did the past year, but if you look back over the last 5 years, even with 25, when they had CM Punk and the Hardys and all that stuff, when they came at WrestleMania time, the same guys main eventing. The same pattern going on again, so it is what it is, so we can't be shocked what we're getting.
Well, I said before that the last investors conference, McMahon said that we're going to see more people this time. This is going to be the WrestleMania that is the measuring stick for the youth movement. He's made it a point to investors that this is going to be essentially the starting point for these new faces, and there's going to be more people main eventing or in title matches at WrestleMania. And so far in the two title matches, we've got that, Alberto Del Rio and The Miz.
I'm fine with that being. I'm glad that they are in the main event card. I'm hoping that they actually are going to have Miz and Cena in the main event and not The Undertaker and Triple H. If you're going to go all the way with this youth movement, you better go all the way for real. If you don't now, next year, people may not be into it for the rest of the year. So if they're going to go with the youth movement, they got to go all the way now this time seriously.
I think it's a safe bet to say that Miz and Cena with maybe Rock as special ref or some shit's a lock for the main event slot.
WrestleMania 25. I'm reading that up. 25, remember? You saw what the main event was, so we got to be careful with how they do that stuff sometimes. Wouldn't it be fine if the Miz win the Mania? Just throw it out there.
Well, I don't expect him to, but what do you think, Corey? I'm sure you are. Abe asked if you'd be fine if Miz kept the title at WrestleMania.
I don't know.
Wait a minute. Cena shouldn't main event all the time, but now you don't know if he shouldn't lose the belt?
I don't know. On the one hand, I'd say yes, because Cena doesn't need the belt right now. On the other hand, I'm not so sure, because since this will be the main event, we're going to end the main event with the heel retaining the title against John Cena, unless Miz turns face magically.
Never a good idea to have the heel win at the biggest show of the year. So, Will Brooks, what do you think?
I agree. Miz just can't win. As much as I kind of like to see the Miz win, he's not going to. The face has to win at WrestleMania, and I wouldn't deviate from that plan. It's worked so well for them over the years. Why change it? And we saw it happen at WrestleMania 2000. How much that sucked ass.
Yeah, and especially since it seems a lock that Alberto's going to take the other belt, I don't see that going on last. Midge, what do you think?
Can I tell you what I would like to happen? I would like for The Miz to retain his title with The Rock screwing over Cena, and that's the last image we see at Mania.
I expect a Tyson-Austin-esque turn with Rock and Cena on this one, but Jay Leto, let's answer Abe's question. Would you want Miz to keep the belt through WrestleMania?
I was going to say the same exact thing you just said, the Austin-Tyson type of turn. That's what I think is going to happen. I think if The Miz was wrestling any other babyface, I think he would deserve to win the title. I just can't see him going over John Cena at WrestleMania. And, of course, because Alberto Del Rio is probably going to beat Edge, I think that's where they want to go with that, and I think that's a smart thing to do. I've been calling for him to get the belt for a while now. And I see, actually, in that match, Christian probably healing out on Edge at some point, or even if it's accidental. I think that could be the turning point there. But, no, John Cena all the way. He's going to win in the main event for sure.
As far as Edge and Del Rio goes, I hate WWE's notoriously bad attitude with obvious shit where a lot of the time they won't do it just to swerve people. I hope that's not the case here. And even if it does require even if it does require Christian winning, even if Christian does help Edge win, let's remember Del Rio's a heel. He should always cheat anyway. Let's give Ryan from Massachusetts the last word on callers.
Well, before I do, I know this is burning on your mind. Trish Stratus' Bulldog, the Stratisfaction.
I can sleep at night now.
I Googled it.
Of course you did. I think a lot of people are underselling WrestleMania, pretty much calling it dead before it comes in.
Especially on our message board. People, if you're listening, please sign up for the message board and start posting some more positive thoughts. We need some more happy-go-lucky, let's look forward to WrestleMania shit going on there.
I'm like literally the only person doing it. Help me.
Ring of Hayden started a nice positive thread, though, I have to say.
Oh, yes. Whereas Corey posted one, WrestleMania 27 is dead on arrival.
Yes, because the main events are so mediocre. What are you thinking, booking team? Please stop smoking pot.
The only way that Corey's going to be satisfied is if the first match is Bryan Danielson winning Money in the Bank, then after Alberto Del Rio beats Edge, he comes out, beats Alberto Del Rio, and then keeps the briefcase and beats the winner of Ms. Cena. That's the only way we're going to satisfy her.
And then hell freezes over and, you know.
Besides, Corey, if this is the results of the writing team smoking pot, I think they're smoking the wrong shit. If they were smoking pot or getting high or whatever, we'd see some awesome, whacked-out, ridiculous shit like Miz versus Cena, where it's a evening gown match, and then the loser wears a dress.
And then Stone Cold Steve Austin comes out in a Zamboni, right?
With lasers.
And a rocket ship.
Now you're starting to think.
That would all be if they were smoking crack. That's what would happen if they were smoking crack.
Oh wow, you all
We're doing that.
I think that's a good point to end the show. So let's call that a night, I think, end on that note. So please join us on WrestlingRoundtable.com. Sign up for that newsletter like I mentioned before. Sign up for the message board. Do some shopping at our Amazon store. If you want to get anything off of Amazon, doesn't have to be just WWE, TNA, or UFC. If it's on Amazon at all, do it through our Amazon store, please. And next time when we come back for Wrestling Roundtable Radio, we'll be talking about UFC 127 with the big John Fitch, BJ Penn welterweight fight, along with Strikeforce, Viejo versus Henderson, and all the latest goings-on in mixed martial arts and pro wrestling. So for the panel of Jay Oleto, Brett Midge Simonello, Will Brooks, Coriander Ake, and all the callers, thank you for joining us. I'm the host, Eric Santamaria, and join us again for Wrestling Roundtable Radio.